Alright folks, I was out using the tractor the other day to clear some brush, and I think I may have got a stick that poked up underneath the tractor and punctured something, and it's currently leaking currently leaking cooling fluid, so we're going to try to figure out what's leaking and how to fix it. So a couple things I'm going to show you here. First thing is, I've put the bucket down in the front, and I put the outriggers out just to keep the tractor from rolling, because I'm going to be climbing up underneath of it. I'm going to go ahead and pop the hood and see if we can figure out where it's leaking from. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull this pin out, and that's going to let this thing here pull forward, this guard. The next thing we're going to do is actually pop the hood. We're going to do that by reaching in here and pulling this pin. Now, if you get up underneath there, you can look and you see there's this pin right here. You pull that and voila, your hood comes up, gives you access to the battery and all that kind of fun stuff. Alright, so I got my hood up. I'm going to take this side panel off, this thing right here, and that way it gives me a little bit more visibility as to what's going on in the engine here. And so I'm going to take this bolt out right here. This is I've got a 15-30 socket on there. 12mm will also work. So once we got that bolt out, just going to set that aside, and there's just a couple tabs here. There's a tab up here in the front, and tab here in the back, and then it just sets on a little pivot point down here. Pull that out and we've got our panel off, and that way we can see what's going on here. I may have to put some fluid in the radiator to find the leak, but I'll probably get down there and look around real good and see if I can see a piece of a stick or something sticking in anything, or anything that might have caused the leak first. Alright, so I just played around with this hose here, gave it some squeezes and stuff, and was feeling on it, and then I noticed that I've got some radiator fluid leaking from right here. So that's my first clue, is to try to figure out where my leak's at. It should be above there at some point. I'm trying to look up through here. I don't know if you can see, but I've got a filter fan here, so I can think I can manage to pull that out. There's a retaining clip right here that's keeping that filter in, so I'll just lift that up and again slide this thing out, and that's not going to want to come out with my front bucket down, so I'm going to have to lift that up, and so I got some clearance here. So we're going to do that, and then we'll re-engage this, moving this thing here out of the way. Alright, so I lifted my bucket up way high, got it out of the way. I probably should have done that to begin with, so I got a better access to this side of the tractor. So we're going to pull that filter out. Again, there's this little retaining clip, and then just give that a little lift and pull that out. That will give me good visual here to the radiator, and I don't think it's leaking from the front there. But as you can see, we can see the radiator pretty good without that filter in there. And I don't see anything on the front that's leaking. There's no wet spots. But again, I know I've got fluid right here, so that tells me something above there is leaking. And I don't see anything in the hoses here, and I don't see anything on this hose that's leaking. There's nothing wet on the bottom. You can reach your hand and feel around that, and you can see that, man, when I when I play with that hose there, it starts leaking more. So I certainly have something going on right here, or somewhere above there. So we're going to crawl around and look some more, see if we can find out where it's leaking at. Alright, so I pulled off my panel here from this side of the tractor, hoping to get a view across the other side where I thought it was leaking from. And also looked up over here, felt up underneath the radiator here, and it's also wet. So that tells me that my leak could be almost anywhere. It's just hitting the bottom of the radiator here and it's traveling back and forth, so it could be leaking from either side or in the middle. So I'm going to go get some water and put in the radiator and see if I can get it to leaking a little bit more profusely and figure out where my leak's at. May have to take this radiator shroud off here to get a clear idea, but maybe with some more water I can figure out which side it's on. Alright, so we twisted off the radiator cap and put some more water in there, and that caused it to leak for sure. And it seems to be leaking towards this side of the tractor, but the terrain, or the hill driveway, kind of leans this way a little bit, so again, really can't tell where that might be coming from, and I don't see anything real obvious other than the fact that it's dripping out of the bottom of the trailer. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to take off all these radiator shrouds and get in there and see if I can track this down. So looking at this, looks like this plate here is bolted down in a couple of places, and it's got this rod here that's welded at the bottom. It comes up, and the radiator looks like it's tied on here, right here, and here. And we got a couple bolts on this side, one right here, and then one underneath this radiator reservoir. And so I'm thinking if I take that off and slide it forward, that might let me get at the radiator, and to get this shroud off. There's some bolts here holding the radiator shroud on, and give me access to being able to get that out of there, because obviously if I take the radiator shroud off here, there's no room to move it back because it's going to hit the engine. So I think I'm going to have to take this plate off right here. I guess I could try to look that up in a manual, how to take the radiator out, but I'm the idiot that just tries to do things and figure it out on my own. We'll have to take this hose off here so that we can get this all moved forward. So at any rate, we'll start on taking those bolts off, see if we can get that platform up. Alright, I got these as a 14 millimeter. Alright, we don't have any turn on our ratchet right there, so we're going to put a couple extensions in here to give us some clearance. Might need a breaker bar on these, wouldn't hurt. Alright, there's one. The other one's underneath this bottle. Which just lifts up. Alright, now to see how loose this is. It looks like this, everything's loose all the way back to the radiator. So we'll see about just sliding that forward and then being able to take the shroud off. Alright, so it looks like what may be keeping me being able to pull this forward is just the fact that my my hoses are still on here. I got a top radiator hose here and the bottom one right here, and so if I take those off, we'll see if this will slide forward. Alright, that was the easy one, the top one. It's loose. Now to get the bottom one, which will of course leak out all my fluid. So I may go get a bucket so I can catch all that. Alright, these are going to be 10 millimeter. Alright, there's one. Oh. This bracket right here is in the way. So we may have to come back and get that one after we move this forward just a little bit. Alright, we got a little bit of an issue here too. This hose right here is kind of keeping my ratchet from coming out. So may have to get that with a wrench the rest of the way if I can't get it with my fingers. And it looks like I can get this turning with my fingers. If you can't, use a wrench. For our friends in the UK, a spanner. Alright, back to seeing if I can move this forward any. My guess is there's probably a center bolt that may be underneath this battery. Alright, we can't see anything from underneath, so I'm going to go ahead and take the battery out. See if there's another bolt on this plate. Alright, so I got it's measured out as a 10 millimeter for these, and for this one here on the positive. I'm not going to worry about the negative because I already disconnected that down there, so just have to tediously undo these. They had a deep socket. You could put that on there and ratchet this off. I've got them, but I just don't feel like going to getting them. That loosens up out of here, this right there, so that makes that easy. Alright, we're going to disconnect the battery there. Fortunately, it's got a little handle, and I do not see a center bolt. But here's what I do see. There's a bolt right there, and when I try to pull this forward, it's going to, the plate is hitting against that bolt back there. You see that? Right back there. So that just means I need to lift it up and then out, I think. Having the battery not in there is not a big deal because that just makes it easier to lift. There we go, that lifted forward. So now we got to figure out what's keeping the radiator from moving forward too. And my guess is things like this. See, this hose is tie wrapped on there, and there's not a lot of slack in it, so I can't really pull this forward very well. So we're going to cut that, and then we'll just put a new bread tie on there when we're done. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect this hose clamp here, so that and take this little piece of foam out here so that I can lift this up, and that's not causing me any problems either. Time to go get a pair of dikes so I can cut that wire tie. Alright, I've got another hose here that's keeping me from pulling this radiator off, and it's right here behind all this mess, so it might be kind of hard to see. If you pull that back, there it is, connects the radiator here, and it comes back. Hopefully you can see. Let's see here. It comes back and it connects right there. So I got to take this hose off. That hose comes up, out, and across over here into the radiator.